My wife turned her back on me when I needed her most, just walked away while I was down. Now, 5 years later, she's back, saying she wants another shot. But she's not ready for the answer I've got for her. I'm Ben. I'm 43 now, living in Illinois. Life has this funny way of flipping you upside down when you least expect it. 5 years ago, back when I was 38, things were pretty ordinary. I had a steady job, a house, and a family. My wife, Laura, and I had 3 kids. Sadie was 13, Caleb 12, and little Maya just 8. I worked as a supervisor on a construction site. It wasn't a glamorous job by any means, but it paid the bills and gave me a reason to get up every morning. There was something satisfying about seeing a building come together and knowing I helped make it happen. Life felt manageable, even if it was a bit chaotic with 3 kids and constant work. I won't pretend I was some perfect husband or dad, but I was trying. Long hours on the job, fixing whatever broke around the house on weekends, and squeezing in time to cheer Sadie on at her volleyball games or check out Caleb's science fair projects. Maya loved to draw, and most evenings she'd climb up beside me with her latest crayon masterpiece, all proud. Those quiet moments were everything to me. Then came that Wednesday. A rainy one, always made things slippery and unpredictable at the site. I was doing a routine check on some scaffolding on the 2nd floor of a warehouse we were building. I'd done stuff like that more times than I could count. It never crossed my mind that something could go wrong. But as I stepped forward, I heard this loud snap, like a branch breaking right in front of you. And just like that, the whole thing gave way. No warning, no time to brace myself. 1 second I was standing there, the next I was free falling. I dropped 2 stories, straight down onto hard concrete. Oddly enough, I don't even remember the pain right away. It was like my brain hit pause, no sound, no feeling, just stillness. I remember lying there, staring up at the dull gray sky, thinking, this is bad. I couldn't move. I didn't know if I was paralyzed or just panicking. Then I heard shouting, guys running over, someone yelling for help, another voice telling me to hang in there, to stay awake. I remember wondering if that was it. Was I about to die? Then the paramedics showed up, and things got hazy after that. Bits and pieces stuck in my mind, sirens blaring, the glare of hospital lights, someone cutting off my shirt. Next thing I knew, I was waking up in a hospital bed, strapped into all sorts of machines and wires. A nurse was standing there when I opened my eyes. Calm and steady. She looked me in the eye and said, "You had a serious fall." She told me they'd done surgery on my back, that I was stable, but there was a lot of damage. No sugarcoating. Turned out I'd fractured multiple vertebrae, busted 2 ribs, and tore up my right shoulder. The surgeon came by the next morning and laid it out, blunt, but not cruel. The injuries to my spine were bad. Real bad. He said there was a chance I might never walk the same again. That's when it hit me. Just like that, I went from the guy who could toss a 100-pound beam over his shoulder to someone who might need help just standing up. My job. Gone in a blink. Providing for my family the way I used to. Out the window. Even simple stuff, playing catch with the kids, fixing a leaky sink, suddenly felt like they were out of reach. Laura was there when the doctor broke the news. She cried, and at the time, I was grateful she showed emotion. But something about her tears felt off. It wasn't just sadness. It was something else, like she was drowning in it, maybe even irritated. I caught her sneaking glances at her phone, texting someone while I was lying there in that hospital bed. It rubbed me the wrong way, but I tried to convince myself she was just stressed out. Those first days were rough. The pain was non-stop, even with medication, and I was too weak to do anything. Laura stopped by, but not as often as I thought she would. She told me the kids were scared to see me like that, which I could understand, but it still hit hard. All I wanted was to see them, to hear their voices. My mom came by a few times, and my brother Tom checked in whenever he could. But the worst part wasn't the pain. It was the uncertainty. Every time I asked the doctors if I'd walk again, they gave me the same vague response: "We'll have to wait and see how recovery goes." That phrase became a punch to the gut every time I heard it. I started physical therapy in the third week, and man, that was a whole different kind of misery. Just getting upright in bed felt like a full-body workout. The therapist kept saying I had to trust the process, but all I could think was, what if this is as far as I'll ever get? For weeks after the accident, I finally got to see the kids. I'd been counting the days. But when they came, it felt strained. Sadie gave me a hug, but she looked unsure. Caleb couldn't stop staring at the floor. And Maya wouldn't let go of Laura's hand, not even for a second. I tried to reassure them. "Daddy's going to be okay," I said, though I wasn't sure I even believed it. "It's just going to take time." Sadie nodded like she was trying to be brave, but I could see how scared she was. They didn't stay long. Laura said it was too overwhelming for them, and I didn't argue. What could I say? I felt like a stranger in my own skin, like I was fading from the role of the dad I used to be. So yeah, that was the moment everything started to spiral. One rainy day, one split-second accident, and my whole world flipped upside down. And the craziest part? That was just the beginning. Rehab was brutal, no doubt, but the physical pain wasn't the worst of it. The real heartbreak was watching Laura start to check out while I was still stuck in that hospital bed. If the fall didn't break me completely, what she did afterward sure came close. At first, she tried to keep up appearances. She'd swing by with something from home, sit beside the bed scrolling on her phone, pretending everything was fine. But the vibe was off. It wasn't just stress. She looked uncomfortable, like she couldn't wait to leave. When I got transferred to the rehab center, her visits dropped fast. First, it was every other day. Then just a couple of times a week. Before long, I was lucky to see her on Sundays. I kept asking her to bring the kids, they were the only thing keeping me grounded. But she always had a reason why they couldn't come. Sadie had volleyball. Caleb had a test. Maya was too nervous to see me that way. Each excuse stung worse than the last. Yeah, I didn't exactly look great, pale, thin, stuck in a wheelchair, but I was still their dad. I missed my kids like crazy. And it felt like Laura was standing at the gate, deciding how much of a father I was allowed to be. A few weeks into rehab, I could tell Laura had started to check out. Not just physically, though her visits got shorter, but emotionally too. She'd sit with me for 15 minutes, then say she had errands to run. Once, she stayed long enough to scroll through her phone, laughing at memes, while I was over there trying to learn how to move my legs again. I tried talking to her. I said, "Laura, I really need you right now. I can't do this by myself." She let out this heavy sigh, like I'd just asked her to carry a mountain. "I'm doing what I can, Ben. This is a lot. I'm holding everything together, and it's exhausting." I didn't push back. What was the point? Sure, it was a lot, but I was the one in the wheelchair, not her. Still, she acted like my accident was just another problem on her to-do list. Then came the moment everything shifted. She walked into my room one afternoon looking different. Hair freshly done, a nice dress, makeup like she was headed to brunch, not to visit her husband in rehab. At first, I thought maybe she was trying to cheer me up or something. Nope. She sat down, pulled out a folder, and said, "I've been thinking. I don't think I can do this anymore." I blinked. "Do what?" "This," she said. "Us." She slid the papers toward me like she was handing over a lunch order. "Divorce papers. I need someone who can actually contribute," she said, shaking her head like she was the one lying in a hospital bed. That word, contribute, hit me like a punch. Like I chose to fall. Like I picked this life just to make hers harder. All I could get out was, "You're serious?" She nodded, and I'll never forget how relieved she looked. Not guilty. Not torn. Just, done. It's better this way. The kids need stability. And I can't give them that if I'm constantly taking care of you. I sat there in shock. What was I supposed to do, argue? With what? I had no job, no strength, and no money for a lawyer. She walked out, and just like that, everything I thought I could count on was gone. The divorce was over almost as fast as it started. I didn't even get visitation rights. Laura claimed it'd be too hard on the kids to bounce between homes. I knew it was garbage, but I couldn't afford to fight her in court. And just when I thought it couldn't get worse, I found out she was already seeing someone. His name? Derek. Of course it was. He was 29, a personal trainer, one of those guys who probably spent more time flexing in front of a mirror than reading anything with more than one syllable. Word was, his last girlfriend left him for a yoga instructor, so I guess Laura looked like a mature rebound or something. Tom, my brother, couldn't stop laughing. So she left you for a dude whose whole personality is protein powder? Yep, I said. Apparently, that's what stability looks like now. But honestly, Derek wasn't even the part that hurt the most. Laura packed up and moved the kids out of state with him. One day they were there, next day, gone. She didn't even let me say a proper goodbye. And just like that, my kids were gone from my daily life. I missed Sadie's 14th birthday. Caleb's first game as soccer captain. Maya's big art show at school. They were growing up, and I wasn't part of it. Meanwhile, Laura and Derek were living their new life, at least on social media. A friend sent me a screenshot of Laura's Facebook, her and Derek smiling in front of a fancy cabin in the mountains. Some cheesy caption about fresh starts and healing. I didn't even care about Laura anymore. But the idea of another man being around my kids, while I was stuck on the sidelines, that crushed me. I kept wondering if Derek actually cared about them, or if he was just trying to be the cool buddy type. Either way, I wasn't there to protect them or guide them, and that ate me alive. So, yeah, rock bottom. I ended up moving in with Tom because I had nowhere else to go. Tom's not exactly the warm and fuzzy type, but he comes through. He's an electrician, lives in a small house that always smells like old coffee and wood paneling. When I rolled in with a bag of clothes and whatever was left of my pride, he just said, "Couch is yours. Try not to stink it up." That was his version of a hug. The first week, I barely moved. Daytime TV became my background noise, judge shows, Miracle Mop commercials, you name it. It was like being stuck in a bad dream you can't wake up from. Tom didn't let me sit in it for long. One night, he came in and said, "All right, that's enough. You get 1 week to feel sorry for yourself. After that, get your ass up and figure out what's next." So, I made my first move, hired a lawyer. I was going after the construction company. What happened to me wasn't a freak accident, it was preventable. One of the guys had flagged that scaffolding as unsafe. Management ignored it. Didn't want to delay the job. Well, their shortcut cost me everything. I wasn't about to let that slide. My lawyer, Jordan, looked like he'd stepped straight out of a 1980s law drama, bad comb-over, loud ties, but the man knew his way around a courtroom. "We've got a solid case," he said. "But they're going to fight hard. These companies always do." And boy, he wasn't kidding. Their legal team came at us like wolves. Tried to pin the whole thing on me, said I wasn't careful enough, like I should have somehow sensed the platform was going to collapse. It was maddening. But Jordan kept telling me to hold steady. "This stuff takes time," he said. Which was just another way of saying, settle in, because the waiting game has begun. I kept grinding through physical therapy. At first, just sitting up felt like my spine was getting hammered with knives. But the therapists? They didn't quit on me. Every single day, they pushed me just a little more. Those tiny wins. They kept me going. The first time I managed to stand for a few seconds felt like summiting Everest. When I finally took a shaky step, I almost lost it and cried right there. It wasn't pretty, and it definitely wasn't fast, but it was progress. Tom, with all his tough love gruffness, ended up being a huge help. He turned his garage into a kind of gym with some old gear. "You're gonna hate this," he warned, tossing me a resistance band. And yeah, he was right. I hated it. But it worked. The best thing Tom did? He dragged me to this local support group for injured workers. At first, I didn't want any part of it. The idea of sitting in a circle and spilling my guts sounded like a nightmare. But Tom wouldn't hear it. "Look, these people get it," he said. "You can't keep pretending you're the only guy in the world who's been through crap." He had a point. So I went. The group was small, maybe 8 or 9 guys, and they weren't the sob fest I'd been bracing for. Mostly guys like me, injured on the job. There was Frank, who fell off a roof fixing shingles, Russ, who crushed his hand in a machine, Joel, who got hit by a forklift. We didn't dwell on our injuries much. Mostly we swapped war stories about dealing with insurance nightmares, legal fights, and figuring out how to live in a new normal. "Man, ever try telling your kid you can't throw a baseball anymore?" Joel said one night. I told my son my pitching arm was retired. He said, "Good. You weren't that good anyway." We all cracked up. That's what made the group different. Real talk, but not heavy. We traded bad jokes and tips on dealing with the system. It felt good to be around people who got it. The lawsuit was still dragging, and money was tight, but for the first time in ages, I felt like I was actually moving forward. One step at a time. Just keep moving. About a year and a half into my recovery, things started to shift. It all began when Tom got hired to wire a wedding venue for lighting. He asked me to come along and help with planning, since I'd gotten decent at that stuff. Honestly, I had nothing better to do, so I went. Rachel was the catering lead, running around with a clipboard, barking orders at her crew. Short, wild brown hair jammed up in a bun that looked like it was barely holding on, but she had this fierce, confident energy. Not stressed. Commanding. Big difference. At first, I wasn't there to make friends, I was just helping Tom figure out power spots for the lights. But while I was sitting outside on the barn steps, taking a break, Rachel plopped down beside me. "Tom's brother, right?" she asked, pointing a pen at me. "Yep," I said. "That obvious?" "Kind of. You've got the same don't mess with me face." I laughed. Honestly, she nailed it. We started talking, and I found out she owned the catering company. She'd started it after leaving her ex, who sounded like a real nightmare. Plus, she was raising her 11-year-old son, Logan, solo. What stuck with me about Rachel was she didn't treat me like I was fragile glass. Most people tiptoed around me, scared to say the wrong thing or mention my accident. "Rachel?" She straight up asked how I ended up in therapy. When I told her about the fall, she winced and said, "So, what are you doing now?" It wasn't pity. Just honest curiosity. When I told her I was still figuring it out, she said, "That stuck with me." After that, we kept running into each other at events over the next few months. One day, during a slow moment at an event, we grabbed coffee. I joked that I'd become the guy who made sure chairs lined up right and speakers didn't blow out. Rachel didn't laugh. Instead, she said, "You could do this for real." "Do what?" "Event planning. You've got a good eye for details and you're organized, that's half the battle." I shrugged it off. Confidence wasn't exactly my strong suit back then. But Rachel didn't drop it. 2 weeks later, out of the blue, she called. "I've got a crazy idea," she said. "Hear me out." Her idea? We team up. She'd handle catering. I'd manage logistics, scheduling, setup, lighting, sound, all the behind-the-scenes stuff. At first, I thought she was nuts. Who starts a business with a guy still in rehab, living on his brother's couch? But Rachel was serious. I don't know if it was her confidence, her persistence, or just that I was tired of feeling useless, but I said yes. Starting a business isn't easy. We were both broke, so we pooled what little money we had and started small, mostly weddings and local fundraisers. I borrowed Tom's truck for hauling gear. Rachel called in every favor she could. It was a grind, but we made it work. Logan, Rachel's son, was around a lot too. Sharp kid, funny, somehow more mature than most adults I knew. "You guys need to chill," he said once when Rachel and I were arguing over table layouts. "It's a wedding, not world peace." I laughed. The kid was right. By the end of that first year, our business started picking up, we landed a few big gigs. One day after an event, Rachel said, "You're walking again. You're working. You're putting your life back together. Don't sell yourself short." I didn't realize how much I needed to hear that until she said it. That's how Rachel came into my life. Fierce, funny, and exactly what I needed when I didn't even know I needed it. Together, we built something from nothing. For the first time since my accident, I felt like more than just the guy who fell off a scaffold. I felt like me again. You ever have one of those days that starts out normal but then flips your whole world upside down? That's exactly what happened the day my phone rang and I saw Sadie's name pop up on the Truecaller app. I just stared at it like I'd somehow made it appear by sheer will. I hadn't heard my daughter's voice in 4 years, not since Laura packed up the kids and took off out of state with that gym bro boyfriend of hers, Derek. When I finally answered, my voice cracked. "Sadie?" I said. "Hey, Dad," she replied. Her voice sounded older, more grown-up than I remembered. "I got my own phone," she went on. "I wanted to call you. Mom tried to stop me a bunch of times, but I really needed to. I was too choked up to say anything for a second." She kept talking. "Can we visit? Caleb and Maya want to come too. We miss you." I nearly dropped the phone. "What?" Let me back up a bit. After the accident and Laura leaving, I didn't have the cash or the health to fight for visitation. Hell, I could barely afford gas to get to therapy, let alone a lawyer to go after Laura in court. I tried though. I texted. I called. I emailed. Every time Laura blew me off or blocked me. "It's not a good time for the kids," she'd say. Or, "They need consistency." Consistency, my ass. She just didn't want me in their lives. I even sent actual letters, pen and paper, hoping she'd pass them on to Sadie, Caleb, and Maya. I don't think they ever saw a single one. So when Sadie called out of nowhere, saying they wanted to visit, it felt like a damn miracle. "Of course you can visit," I told her. "When? Next weekend?" She asked almost nervously, like I might say no, as if I wouldn't drop everything for this. After we hung up, I just sat on the couch staring at the phone. Tom came in and saw my face. "What happened? You win the lottery or something?" I said. Sadie called. "The kids are coming to visit." Tom raised an eyebrow. "No kidding. Laura doesn't know yet," I said. "Sadie has her own phone now." Tom grinned. "Well, I'll be damned. Better get the place ready." That week was a blur. I cleaned like a man possessed, even though Tom kept telling me the kids wouldn't care if the place was a mess. I didn't care. I wanted everything perfect. Rachel offered to help, of course. She even made a welcome home banner for the living room, way more thoughtful than anything I'd come up with. The day they arrived, I got to the bus station 40 minutes early, 'cause I couldn't sit still. When the bus pulled up, my heart was pounding like it was the first time I was meeting them. I stood frozen until Sadie spotted me. "Dad," she yelled, running over. She hugged me so tight I thought my still healing back might snap again, but I didn't care. Caleb joined in next, awkward at first, then burying his face in my shoulder. Maya hung back, shy, but I crouched down and held my arms out. She ran to me and whispered, "I missed you." Over dinner, things started to thaw. Rachel made spaghetti, which Maya declared her favorite, and Caleb started talking soccer. Sadie stayed quiet, pushing her food around, but she wasn't ignoring me. It felt like she was watching, seeing if I was still the same guy she remembered. After dinner, Sadie finally spoke. "Mom said you didn't want to see us." I froze. "What?" "She told us you never tried, that you didn't care." That hit me like a punch to the chest. "Sadie, that's not true," I said. "I wrote letters. I called. I emailed. I begged your mom to let me see you." She stared at me, eyes narrowing. "Why didn't you fight for us?" I took a deep breath. "Because I couldn't. I was broke, Sadie. Still in physical therapy. I wanted to fight, but I didn't have the money or the strength." Sadie didn't say anything for a long time. Caleb looked up from his plate. "So, you did want us?" "More than anything," I said. "You're my kids. I love you. I've always loved you." Maya, who'd been quiet the whole time, suddenly burst into tears. "I knew you loved us," she said, throwing herself into my arms. Sadie followed, then Caleb. We sat there, a pile of tears and hugs, as I tried to explain everything. Later that night, I showed them the court filings, the restraining orders Laura had put up, and copies of all my emails. Sadie read every word, jaw tightening. Caleb flipped through, shaking his head. "She lied to us," he muttered. "She thought she was doing what was best," I said, trying to be fair. "But she was wrong." Sadie looked up. "I'm sorry, Dad. For believing her." "You don't have to apologize," I told her. "You were kids. You trusted her because she's your mom." That seemed to settle something in her. She hugged me again and said, "We're here now." The rest of the weekend was amazing. We hit the park, played board games, stayed up late talking. Sadie opened up about school and friends. Caleb showed me ridiculous soccer trick shots he'd learned. Maya stuck to me like glue, asking a million questions about my life and laughing at every dumb joke I made. For the first time in forever, I felt like a dad again. My kids were back, and no one could take that from me. Things were going pretty great after reconnecting. We stayed in touch almost every day, and they kept asking if they could move in with me. That's when Laura decided to stir up drama like it was her life's mission. I should have seen it coming. She's never been one to let anyone be happy unless she's at the center. It all started about 2 weeks after the kids posted a picture of me and Rachel on social media. It was one of those cheesy group shots from the park, everyone smiling, looking like an actual family. I guess Laura saw it, because the next day my phone blew up with her name. I hesitated before answering. It had been years since I'd heard her voice, and I knew it wasn't going to be friendly, but I picked up. She didn't even bother with a hello. "What the hell are you doing, Ben?" she spat. Living my life," I said. "You brainwashed them," she snapped. "The kids are talking about how great you are and how awful I've been. Do you have any idea what that's done to me?" I almost laughed. "Laura, I didn't have to brainwash anyone. They figured it out on their own. Maybe you should have thought about that before lying to them for 5 years." That was the line that set her off. Laura went on this rant about how Derek wasn't stepping up, how she'd sacrificed everything for the kids. I cut her off right there. "Laura, I'm not the one who packed up and left. You made your choices. Now you're mad because they don't like the fallout. That's on you. She hung up on me, but I knew it wasn't over. Sure enough, a week later, she showed up at my office unannounced. Rachel and I were in the middle of sorting out logistics for a wedding when Laura just waltzed in like she owned the place. I barely recognized her. She looked worn down, like life had been chewing her up and spitting her out. "Ben," she said, all serious, "we need to talk." I sighed and glanced at Rachel, who gave me that look like, "I'm here if you need me," then slipped out to the back. I turned back to Laura. "What's this about?" She launched into a long speech about Derek dumping her. Apparently, he decided the whole family man thing wasn't his style anymore and moved on to dating some TikTok influencer who posts endless meal prep and gym videos. Honestly, they seemed perfect for each other. Laura, who'd built her whole new life around him, was now stuck trying to hold everything together solo. "And?" I said when she paused. "I want us to rebuild the family," she said like it was the most obvious thing in the world. I swear, I almost choked. "You mean the family you walked out on? The one you traded for protein shakes and a six-pack?" "Ben, I was overwhelmed," she said, voice cracking like she was trying to summon tears. "You don't know how hard it was for me back then." I just stared. "Laura, I was the one lying in a hospital bed with a broken back. You didn't even stick around long enough to see if I'd recover. Don't talk to me about hard." She kept going, listing reasons she deserved a second chance. The kids needed stability. We had history. She missed how things used to be. It was all nonsense. I told her so. The only second chance you deserve is a loyalty punch card at the smoothie bar. That shut her up for a second. Then she got defensive. "So that's it? You're choosing her," she said, nodding toward the back where Rachel had disappeared. "Yeah, Laura. I am. Rachel's been here for me when you weren't. She's helped me rebuild my life. You burned it down and walked away." Just then, Rachel walked back into the room. "Who's this?" she asked casually, like Laura was some stranger off the street. Laura's face went bright red. She stammered something about needing to leave and practically bolted out the door. Rachel raised an eyebrow at me. "Let me guess," she said. "Laura?" "Yep." "What, did she want to get back together?" Rachel snorted. "Wow. Bold move for someone who ditched you for a guy named Derek." A few days later, Laura called again. This time, calmer, almost pitiful. She started talking about how hard things were now that Derek was gone. "I don't know how I'm going to make it on my own," she said. I didn't have much sympathy left. "Maybe try doing what I did, start over and figure it out," I said. She tried one last guilt trip. "What about the kids? Don't they deserve a full family?" "They will," I said. "Just doesn't include you." That was the last I heard from her for a while. Looking back, it was kind of satisfying to see Laura finally face the consequences of her choices. For years, she controlled the narrative, making me out to be the bad guy while she played the victim. But now the truth was out, and she had to live with it. I won't lie, I felt a little smug watching her squirm. But mostly, I felt relief. For the first time in years, I wasn't at her mercy. I had my kids, my business, and a future that didn't include Laura. Things got better after that. First, the lawsuit. It took forever, but the case finally wrapped up. The construction company pulled every trick to dodge responsibility, blaming me, blaming the weather, blaming the guy who put up the scaffolding. But my lawyer, Jordan, wasn't having it. He tore their arguments apart piece by piece. The judge sided with me, and the payout was substantial. Not gonna throw around exact numbers, but let's just say it changed my life. I used the money to grow the event business Rachel and I had been building. We upgraded our gear, hired more staff, and started landing bigger gigs, weddings, corporate events, festivals, you name it. The best part? I finally had the financial stability to give my kids the life they deserved. I bought a house, a real home where each of them had their own room. No more cramming into guest spaces. I set up college funds for Sadie, Caleb, and Maya, something I never thought I'd be able to do. For the first time in years, I wasn't just surviving. I was thriving. Then came the custody battle. Laura didn't even fight. I think she knew the kids had made up their minds, and honestly, she probably didn't want the responsibility anymore. She signed the paperwork quietly. Just like that, the kids were mine again. Rachel and I got closer than ever. Running the business had made us a solid team, but now we were building a life together. She was my rock through everything, and I made sure she knew how much I appreciated her. As for Laura, she went back to her hometown. Last I heard, she's working part-time at a retail store, living in a tiny apartment. The kids see her for who she really is now. They still visit occasionally, but it's clear where their home is. That's where the story ends. If it spoke to you, drop your thoughts in the comments. And hey, if you want more stories like this, hit subscribe. There's another one waiting for you right here on the screen. Thanks for sticking around. I'll see you there.